Over the past 2 years, my channel has been flooded with comments and questions on every single video I've ever posted, and realistically, it's nearly impossible for me to answer every single question or respond to every comment in a meaningful way. But I try my best, and very often there's just things that hinder my ability to do that. However, I see very often there are repeated questions or comments that a variety of people ask or respond to, and I feel like it might be a good idea to just kind of sit down and work through some of those. So, this is the top 10 comments and questions on my channel. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do top 10 lists. I don't do that type of thing. We're just going to look at the most common questions and comments, and I'll respond to them here. Why do you buy such cheap swords? Why do you waste your money on this? So honestly, this is a very difficult question to answer because it's rather complex. You wouldn't think it would be, but it is. And it really comes down to the core of how I build my collection. I have two really competing directives for my collection. One is to get very top-line, high-quality swords, usually ones that are rare or limited runs, so I can have that in my collection and really fit everything I want, both functionally and aesthetically, and are the top-line perfect kind of heirloom-style sword. And so you'd see these in things like Arm & Armor, Valiant Arms, Albion, and certainly any swords made custom by a smith that knows what they're doing. But on the other end of my sword collection is this kind of competing value of trying to get a variety in my collection, because I don't want to just have 5 swords that are all roughly late Middle Ages, and you're just kind of like, okay, well that's a nice collection, but there isn't a lot of variety there. I want that variety, so I want katanas, falcatas, I want sabers, rapiers, I want ridiculous falchions that should never really ever be used. I want all these things, and it's very difficult to buy all of those at the top end of the spectrum because it's very expensive. So what I can do is I can get, for those types of swords, the cheaper options, the ones you can get from Windlass or Hanway or Dark Sword Armory that will allow me to add to my collection, but not in a way that breaks the bank. So the answer to this is really, it's just a matter of how I am choosing to build my collection. Now, there's also kind of the other concept of why do you waste your money on this when you look at videos such as the Sword of Might mystery box or my eBay horror stories videos. And the answer to that is really quite simple. I did it mostly for the video. I did it just to satisfy not only my own curiosity, but the curiosity of people out there on the internet who wonder, if I spend $200 on the Sword of Might mystery box, am I going to get something good? And I think we all know the answer to that. But likewise, I spent $200 on the Cult of Athena mystery box, and I got all sorts of great things. And I don't really view it as a waste of money because I know going into it that there's an inherent risk of me not getting anything worth having. But that's really the reason behind all of my sword collecting habits and why I buy what I buy. It's mostly just to build up my collection, but also get the swords that I really want. How can you afford so many swords? What do you do for a living? Honestly, this is a question that I will never answer. I consider this a very private topic, and I will never divulge what I do for a living. But I will at least say that what I do is a professional job. I got a degree from a university, and it helped me get this job more than a decade ago, and I've been doing it ever since. And it has certainly helped to some extent fund my obsession and my hobby of collecting swords. Why do you mispronounce so many words? In the course of doing a lot of my videos, I have many a time mispronounced something. Some German word, some Italian word, some Japanese word, who knows. There's all these words out there, and as a native English speaker, and that's it, I don't really actually have a secondary language outside of a little bit of Latin, I do not really know how to pronounce all these things. And even if I had an idea or I try to shoot for it, the subtleties that make it the good pronunciation for people who are native speakers of that language, I'm not going to be able to nail that. I'm sorry, it's just not within my capabilities. Now, I try my best to get the pronunciations right. Sometimes words fail me, or I can't find or can't research what the pronunciation is supposed to be, so I make a best guess, and then I end up being wrong. End of the day, I'm just stuck with it. I am an American, And really that should actually answer the question, because we as a people are really terrible at pronunciation even of our own words. As English speakers, we don't do it very well. But that's why I mispronounce them, because it's not my primary language and I don't always know exactly how it's supposed to be pronounced. Why is X not the case with X? This is kind of a catch-all question. This gets asked a lot. Some examples would be like, why don't they sell axes on the Cold Steel store? Why does this company decide to do this with this type of sword? I don't know. I don't know. I have no control over what a lot of companies decide to do, decisions they make. The best I can do is maybe give some insight into it. But at the end of the day, if you have those questions, you should ask it of the company themselves. Can you do a review of X sword? There's two variations to this question. One is whether or not I can do a review of a sword that's currently in my collection, and the other one is, can I do a review of a sword that I don't have in my collection, such as just some Albion sword or some dark sword, armory sword out there. The answer to this is yes, absolutely, I can do a review on them. I just haven't. When it comes down to my collection, I have kind of an idea of what swords I want to do a review on, and it really is incumbent upon my passion to do that review. I want to be interested in talking about that sword. Sometimes I'm really interested initially when I have the sword, and then as time goes on, I become less interested in doing a review for that particular sword at that time. And certainly I have swords that I want to do reviews on, but I'm waiting on something to happen. A good example of this is actually this katana right back here. So this is a Sword Buyer's Guide custom katana that I bought more than a year ago, and I haven't done a review on it because I'm actually waiting on doing something kind of similar with a custom style sword, and then I would do two of these kind of reviews together and pair them as a kind of a grouping of reviews to come out at some point in the future. End of the day, it really just comes down to what I'm interested in. Now, the other side of this question, where it's can I do a review of a sword that's not my collection, like someone will just say, can you do a review of the Albion Baron? Well, yes, I can do it, but it's incumbent upon me having the sword in my hand, being able to use it, being able to have some time and experience with it, because I'm not going to just look at a picture of a sword and then do a review on it. I actually have a series for that I call the Spotlight series, which I've done very few of, where I actually talk about a sword that I only really can see online. End of the day, I like to have the swords in hand, I like to use them. So if there are swords that aren't part of my collection, the only way I can review them is through a variety of means. One is I borrow it. Someone sends me their sword and I borrow it for some period of time and I do a review on it. Two, the company sends me the sword to do a review. This has happened a few times in the past, but it's not a very common thing. Mostly because swords are an expensive commodity, and most companies that make them, they don't really want to lose out on that as much. It's the concept of a review copy of a sword is not quite the same as if you're talking about books or magazines or movies or video games, where the price of said commodity is relatively low. But at the end of the day, it's just, I have to have the sword in hand. I have to have it for usually more than a week, usually upwards of at least 2 weeks for me to have some time to do cut tests and everything else. And so while there have been some offers on the table that I will be taking people up on to actually do reviews of swords that they own, it's just a matter of me having it in hand. So the only way I can do a review on a sword is if I have it in hand, go get people to send me swords. That's one way I will review them. Where did you get that t-shirt? What, this shirt? Oh, you mean the shirt in the video you were asking the question on. So, okay. My t-shirts I wear in reviews are actually a very intentional kind of gimmick. If you go back and watch my videos, you will notice a theme that begins to form with a lot of my reviews. A good example of this is when I did the review of the Dark Sword Armory Einar Viking sword. That's the one that broke on me when I was doing cut tests. I wore a shirt that said Broken Sword on it, which is a very good video game, by the way, but it was kind of an inside joke. Likewise, when I have a shirt that fits some sort of medieval theming of a certain type, I might wear a shirt that kind of endorses that medieval theming. At the end of the day, though, these shirts come from a wide variety of places. Some I have bought in gift shops at museums. My Siege the Day shirt is one that I bought at the now defunct Higgins Armory Museum that used to be up in Massachusetts. Plenty of shirts have come from other locations. I do have a shirt shop through Spreadshirt. You can find that in a link up here. And certainly there are tons and tons of websites that have done those limited run shirts that are only there for a day. Woot shirts, those type of things. A lot of shirts come from there, and you just have to go find them. They may not be available for purchase anymore. There are also a couple of shirts that I've just bought here and there. My chainmail shirt, for one, is one from a website called Print All Over Me, and that's actually a shirt I designed, and you can buy it on their website. So I try to link to these when people do ask questions about my t-shirts, but a lot of times I just can't answer it because honestly, I can't even remember where I got the shirt. So if I remember, I'll answer this question, but generally speaking, just try to go find out. They're mostly available online somewhere. Your beard is epic. Not anymore. You look like Zach Galifianakis. Okay. I mean, I like the guy. He's pretty funny. I really like Between Two Ferns. I can never quite tell if this comment is a compliment or not. But yeah, I guess maybe I looked a bit like him when I had the big mustache. I've also been told I look like a couple other celebrities. Will Wheaton is one of them, and the wrestler Triple H. I don't think I look like any of them. What is that helmet? This helmet is a Numenorian helmet from the Lord of the Rings movies. I really liked this helmet. It was from the prologue on the very first movie, Fellowship of the Ring, talking about the Second Age, where men and elves went and fought against Sauron, and then kind of won the battle, kind of. But you'll notice that a lot of the men in the battle sequences were wearing these kinds of helmets, the Numenorian helmet. And I really like the design of it. It's one of the few fantasy helmets that is kind of that wing concept that I really liked. A lot of this had to do with the design when you go into the behind the scenes for these type of helmets. They talked about how this pattern right here is meant to kind of represent seabird wings. And it's actually very true when you look at the history that Tolkien wrote about the Numenorians. They're a seafaring culture, and birds are kind of a big symbol for them. And so it kind of being this idea of like a seagull put into the helmet as a wingspan, I thought it was pretty neat. End of the day, no replicas existed to buy for this helmet. You had them for like the helmet of Isildur and those type of things, and they did a lot of elven helmets and dwarven helmets like Gimli's helmet, but they never ever did official replicas of this helmet. So my lovely wife, for Christmas one year, when we were still dating, we weren't even married at the time, she bought me this helmet. She had it custom made from a friend of hers who does kind of custom both sword and armor making, mostly for theater. And so this is definitely costume grade. It's a very, very thick, heavy metal, but it's wonderful. There's one of my prized pieces of my collection because it's so rare to find even a halfway decent replica of the Numenorian helmet. Your wife is awesome. Yes, she is. That's why I married her. You suck. I'm kidding. I don't care. Subbed! Thank you! I always appreciate new subscribers. You didn't answer my question. Can you answer more questions, please? I absolutely can, and I intend to. So here's how it's going to work. Ask your questions in the comments below. I'm going to do my best to answer as many questions that I can that are listed just here in this video's comments. And depending on the quantity or the quality, I may answer them in different ways. I don't think I'm actually going to try to respond to them in line, in comments, but I think I'm going to do a follow-up video where I will do a very similar format. Now, assuming that that's a small amount of questions, but if there's a ton of questions that get asked, I will actually maybe take a slightly different route. I've been toying with the idea of doing a live stream, and if I do something like a live stream, well, then you can ask your questions live, as well as me answering some of the ones that have been listed below. It really just depends on how many we see, but I will do my best to answer as many of these as I can, so ask away until your heart is content.